Howdy, 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 and welcome to That Girl's Quilting Threads and Things. Today's block is called Anna's Choice, Annie's Choice, Margaret's Choice, and it's got a few other names. But nonetheless, it's a fun block to build. It's quite easy. It's full of half square triangles. So let's go. Let's get started and take it one stitch at a time. So the block that we're going to do today is got a couple of different names. It's Annie's Choice or Margaret's Choice, also called the arrow point or the piece start, and I'm sure there's a few other variation names out there. But today's exercise is going to be in nothing but half square triangles. And I've already picked out the fabrics for our half square triangle units, and for each one of the half square triangle combinations we'll be making 2 of each. So there'll be a lot of squaring up. In order to make 2 half square triangles at a time, I've selected the measurements for the 12-inch block at 4 inches. You generally should be adding 7/8 of an inch, but I went and just rounded it up to the next 1/8 inch, which in this case is 4 inches. And what this will do is it will give us a little extra wiggle room when we're squaring up our half square triangle units. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so our background fabric is going to be these light colored, and then we have reds and blues as our accent fabrics. And the blues will make up our arrow points, and the whites will also make up our secondary star points. So to make 2 at a time, it is very simple. I'm actually going to split my fabric piles in half. All right, so I have one of each of the focused or accent fabrics. Okay, then this pile will all be paired with this light one, and this side will all be paired with this one. And we'll start by placing right sides together, and we will take and we will draw a line from one diagonal corner to the other. I also will be pinning these on each side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line this up, and I'm going to draw I'm going to draw a line on each side, using whatever fabric writing tool you choose. All right, so I have these 2 lines drawn. I'm going to pin, and again, pinning is quilter's choice. I am not good enough or experienced enough that I can get away with this without pinning. Then I'm going to take each unit, I'm going to take it to the sewing machine, and I'm going to sew just on the inside of the drawn line. And the reason is because when I go to lay this out, right, this tool is exactly 1/2 inch, which means that if I draw a line, this line is on the outside or just a hair bigger than 1/2 inch. And 1/2 inch divided by 2 or in half is 1/4 inch. So to make sure that I do not make my half square triangles smaller than what they're supposed to be, I sew my stitch line just on the inside of each one of these. So this is ready to take to the sewing machine and sew the 2 stitch lines scant on the inside of each drawn line. So I'm going to go ahead and put all of my units together and prepare them for sewing, and then I'll see you at the sewing machine. Okay, I'm going to chain piece these, but I'm going to go ahead and, so I'm going to start with one side. I'm just going to chain piece all the way down, slightly on the inside of the sewn line. And then I'm going to cut them all, flip them around, and repeat the process. And just to show you, so here is my drawn line, and you may not be able to see it, but my sewn line is just above that drawn line. And that's what we mean by just scant on the inside. All right, let's finish this up. Now we're ready to go ahead and cut these in half. And these are nice enough size that I can actually take and line up my drawn lines. And I can cut 3 at a time. So I'll just line my 1/4 inch line on the drawn line, just on the outside of the drawn line. Everything is lined up. There's 3, actually there's 6 half square triangles. And what we'll do is we'll open these up gently because they are cut on the bias. We'll give them a quick finger press. And there's our half square triangles. 2 of each kind. So I'm going to finish cutting these up. Then I'm going to take them to the pressing station and come back and go through the squaring up process. So we've pressed everything open and we've pressed our seams towards the dark side. So that means our seam, our fabric, seam allowance fabric is all going towards the dark side. Now what we need to do is we need to square these up to 3.5 inches. This is a 4x4 or a 16 patch quilt block, which means that when we divide our rows, there'll be 4 patches per row. Since we're making a 12-inch quilt block, that means each finished unit needs to be 3 inches. So our unfinished units, we need to square up our units so that they measure 3.5 inches unfinished. To get from unfinished to finish, we must consider that 1/4 inch seam allowance for each unit. That 1/4 inch seam allowance is what causes the difference between 3.5 inches and 3 inches. So I have a nice, easy, manageable ruler. It has 2 45-degree lines. It's a 6.5 inch ruler, so it will work very nicely when squaring up these small blocks. So I want to take my 1 corner, okay, and I'm going to put it in the upper right corner here. I'm going to line my 45-degree line. That's probably easier to see. I'm going to line my 45-degree line right on the seam of this fabric here. Okay, And then I'm going to start by giving myself a true corner. So I need to make sure that generally I will make 2 cuts per unit. One is to give myself a true corner, and the other one is to give it the final cut that's going to measure it at 3.5 by 3.5. So I will need to make sure that when I line my fabric up underneath of it, that it lays past the 3.5 inch line, both vertically and horizontally, so that when I make my first cut, I get a true corner, so that when I make my second cut, I haven't cut too much away from the fabric. So there's my unit. There's my 45-degree line. Lining it up so that it is running right down the center of the unit. My fabric goes just beyond the 1/2 inch mark on both sides. So now I can make my first set of cuts. All right, and notice that where that diagonal point is, where the light and dark fabric meet, is points right in the corner. We want that to be the same way on this side when we square it up. So we turn it 180 degrees, follow the same process, align our diagonal line right down the center. Now this time we want our 3.5 inch line literally right on the edge of our fabric and right on the edge of our fabric. So vertical and horizontal matches up as perfect as you can get. Then we make our final cut. And we now have a 3.5 by 3.5 half square triangle unit. I'm going to repeat this process for the remaining 15 blocks, and then we'll come back and lay out the units so that we can put our block together. All right, we're all squared up. Now we're ready to lay out our block. And I'll start with the center block, and then I'll work my way around to the outside. Now we have our block laid out. So we're ready to go ahead and attach our units to create our rows. I'm going to put each row together individually. Now you can chain piece by starting with the first 2 columns and placing the second block in right sides together, a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Then doing the same down this first 2 columns, come back up and chain piece these together by placing them right sides together with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and continue on that way, or you can do it by rows at a time. I think for me, I'm going to go ahead and complete 1 row at a time. So let's go to the sewing machine and start to stitching. Now let's take these first 2 blocks together, line them up. next two blocks together. And I would like to put these back where they are supposed to be, just to make sure that I have them lined up properly. And I can already see that I do not. And that's why I put them back in their spots. Alright, so now we're ready to go ahead and complete this row. There's our first row. I'm going to finish putting chain piecing and putting each of these rows together. So when we press, we're going to press each row going in an opposite direction. So this row, I'm going to press all the seams going that way. This row, all the seams will go that way. All the seams that way, all the seams that way. And what this will do is, with the seams going in opposite directions, we will be able to nest our seams. Alright, now we're ready to attach our rows. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach the top and bottom row, and with our seams, I'm going to match them up so that, and I go through this each video, I try to, because I never know if you just stumbled across this video or if you've watched one from before. But I'm going to pin that first one. And what I'm striving for is where one seam is going this way, one seam is going the other way, and where they meet, I can feel it's nice and flat, but I also can't slide the fabric back and forth. So that tells me that my seams are nested up against each other very nicely. I'm going to pin. Sometimes I pin just the start and the stop, the first and last seam. And then what's going to happen is, as I'm going down sewing my 1/4 inch seam allowance, as I approach where the first pin is, I'm going to stop just shy of that pin to lock that fabric in its position, pull the pin out, and then continue on. And I will stop at each junction point. Right? This will help me make sure that my fabric is staying aligned and that my points are staying matched up as best as possible. So let's go ahead and finish out this block. Annie's choice or Margaret's choice? It's the star of your choice. Our block is finished. I really enjoyed putting it together, and I think it's such a wonderful component to everybody's quilting journey. When you think about taking one simple unit and manipulating it around, you can come up with so many different variations and different patterns that are all beautiful. I also, as a part of my quilting journey and as part of this project, this particular quilt project that I'm working on, for every pattern that I do, I create a 12-inch block, and I've been working on creating a 6-inch block. So here was a 6-inch block that I did. This was really challenging for me. Very small units, very small squares, and to be able to take all of that fabric and have those points come together so beautifully. I enjoyed it. I think I enjoyed making the smaller block than I did the larger block. But just so that you can tell, if we don't pin, or sometimes getting things lined up, you might see so I misaligned my pin in this particular area, and it didn't come out 100%, but it's okay. I am not a professional quilter. I am not perfect, but I do challenge everybody to try this at home. Thank you for joining me today on this quilting journey. I hope that you got something out of it, and I'd love it if you shared your comments and feedback. So until the next time, may all your quilting journeys be joyful, one stitch at a time.